everybody. First, I just want to thank you guys for coming out here tonight instead of being in the warm embrace of your families. I really appreciate it. I thought I was going to try something a little different tonight. Instead of telling jokes, I'm just going to sing a song about the history of America, just to kind of show where we've come from. Rest assured, it is the same history you learned growing up. By that I mean it's told from the perspective of a white man, so here we go. In the year 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue and discovered an island where no one was present except for the thousands of indigenous residents. He said, "Buongiorno, do you mind if I stay?" And long story short, he's got a federal holiday. In the year 1620, the Pilgrims sailed across the sea and they made friends with the Indians, or if you're not from Cleveland, the Native Americans. First Thanksgiving down at Plymouth Rock, the Indians brought food and the Pilgrims brought smallpox. Then in 1631, the Puritans came to outlaw fun by teaching all the girls and boys about the value of hard work and the danger of joy. Well, they certainly thought their way of life was better, but they're the reason that we have the Scarlet Letter. Then in 1693, the town of Salem went crazy and they hung a bunch of women till dead based off some nonsense a bunch of punk-ass children said. Well, the townsfolk thought that they were in danger from 24 colonial Hermione Grangers, but had they actually read those books before, they'd notice the creepy old ball guys that you gotta watch out for. Voldemort. And Roger Ailes. Skip ahead to 1754, the outbreak of the 7 Years' War, called the French and Indian War by some, but they were on the same team, so that's kind of dumb. Well, even though the French lost anyway, 'twas the Americans who'd soon become les miserables. Believe it or not, that's only the first lamest joke I have here tonight. In the year 1773, the famous Boston Tea Party. Rather than steal what we couldn't afford, we decided to throw it all overboard. We were super upset about a tax on tea, which is weird because we pretty much just drink coffee. Then in 1776, we declared our independence and went to war with our British oppressors and their army of the most predictable dressers. You know, wearing a red coat on the battlefield is an excellent way to be a human shield. That's how we won the war and got our own constitution, which was so good we amended it about 10 seconds after its initial institution. Jump ahead to 1804. Lewis and Clark set out to explore the frontier, the wilderness, the western shore. You know, more places no one had ever lived before. It was a miracle Sacagawea decided to stay and that nobody died of dysentery along the way. Next, the War of 1812. This one was huge, so brace yourself. It was war with the British, but not the one from before. More like a sequel that only James Madison asked for. Well, apparently the British did something very wrong, and afterward America had its very own theme song, straight out of Compton. Then by 1861, the American Civil War had begun. It was a war about states' rights in the first place. Said the guy wearing a giant white sheet on his face. It was father versus son and brother versus brother. Brother versus brother from another mother. Well, I'll never forget what dear Lincoln said. I need community theater like I need a hole in the head. From the Gettysburg Address. 1914, World War I, the fabric of the world had come undone because we shot a guy named Franz Ferdinand, who was an Austrian Archduke before he was a band. We were going to Germany after we won, which in hindsight was probably not the best course of action. More on that later. And in 1929, the stock market went on a tiny decline, and in order to survive the Great Depression, people started perfecting their Jean Valjean impressions, except nobody actually stole a loaf of bread. This is New York, baby. We stole bagels instead. That's the last of the late Miss jokes, guys. Then in 1941, Japan did the dumbest thing it's ever done. We sailed to the Pacific, we marched to Berlin to fight the Emperor and Charlie Chaplin's evil twin. While our relationship with Japan didn't recover until they gave us a present called Super Mario Brothers. And as for Germany, things stayed pretty bad until Russia decided communism was more than just a fad. Guys, what's a Russian disco group called? The KGBGs. 1962, the missile scare. Turns out Cuba was hiding more than cigars down there, and the whole world was under a lot of stress watching Khrushchev and Kennedy play nuclear chess. If I could go back now and say something to John, it'd be don't drive with the car top down and the radio on. Relax, none of you are alive. Actually, some of you are definitely alive. Then in 1969, we put a man on the moon just fine. It was the most impressive feat of the modern age, or the coolest thing Stanley Kubrick shot on a stage. Yeah, some people think the whole thing was fake, and that casting Buzz Aldrin was a huge mistake. Guy just forgot his lines. Then in 1974, Watergate caused a national uproar. Some people broke into the DNC, sort of a recurring joke in American history. Well, Nixon said, I am not a crook. I planted all those bugs by the book. Well, it turns out the 70s were less than groovy, except for that pretty cool Star Wars movie. Guys, remember we all loved George Lucas? In 1987, Reagan said, tear down this mother Russian wall, Mr. Gorbachev. It was a symbol of oppression from the Cold War, not to mention a traffic hazard and a total eyesore. Boy, those Soviets were sure fun to hate, but now modern Russia's just totally great. Then in 1998, things got awkward for our chief of state. Turns out the president stole more than a kiss and got his freak on with an intern in the Oval Office. Well, some people took a political stance, but the lesson there was really just keep it in your pants. The year 2000, Y2K, turns out the world actually ended on that day, and people cried and people grieved when the ball didn't light up at Dick Clark's rockin' New Year's Eve. But after seeing Star Wars Episode 1, well, I think I speak for everyone when I say after 2000 things would only get worse. Also, I didn't feel like writing another verse. America, God have mercy on thee. And when we've died, please brush aside our messed up history. Thank you, everybody.